Hey, this lesson we're going to be covering some Node code and showing you how it works, so demonstrating how it works and how you can run it on your machine. Also talking about the V8 engine, so that's what makes Node work behind the scenes and allows your JavaScript within Node to connect to your system. Also asynchronous and non-blocking JavaScript, so we're going to talk a little bit more about why that coding and that's important with Node. Benefits of using Node, so listing out some of the really cool things about Node and some interesting facts and fun information about Node and why Node is a good choice for your web applications, and also about the Node package manager, how to get documentation, and a whole lot is going to be covered in this lesson. So let's get started. In the last lesson, we wrote our first JS file, and within there we had a console message of test going out to the console. So what happens if you try to run the file within the browser? With Visual Studio, you can drag and drop the file over to your browser and it's going to render it out, but it's not doing anything within the browser. It's just running it and it's outputting whatever content I have. So it's not actually executing any of the JavaScript code. It's simply outputting the contents of the file. Whereas if I did have this wrapped within an index file, so let's do another quick file here, and we'll just save that as index.js, and then we'll link to the JavaScript file, and I'll show you how it runs in the browser. So setting up, and I'm going to just link out to it. So script source, and the source is going to be the app.js, and I'll minimize the terminal here. Right now we'll just kill the terminal, and then also I'll minimize the files there on the left-hand side. So we've got a script that's running the app1.js, and it's just the index HTML file. So now if I drag index into the browser, what happens is that it executes the JavaScript and does what asked it to do within the code, where we're asking it to output the word test to the console. So how this works, and it works the same way with Node, is that behind the scenes within the browser, it's using what's known as the V8 JavaScript engine. So this is available within Chrome, and Node uses that same V8 engine to interpret the JavaScript within the runtime environment and execute the code and do something with the JavaScript code. Welcome to the V8 JavaScript engine. So this is the engine, and it's the core component of Node. It what makes Node work and allows your JavaScript code to run locally on your system, allowing your Node application to communicate to your system, and this is all done through the V8 engine. And on the back end, the V8 engine is running C++, so anything that C++ can do, now you can do with JavaScript with Node. So essentially it's doing the same thing, copying what the browser does, but doing it locally on your machine, and allows the developers to build server-side and network applications all using JavaScript code. So there's a lot of reasons why using Node, and it's great for web applications, mobile applications. It's asynchronous, so it works really well for real-time intensive, data-intensive applications. It's easy to get started with if you're familiar with JavaScript, and JavaScript is one of the most easiest languages to learn. We are going to be covering the core fundamentals of JavaScript as well in the upcoming lessons. There's a large ecosystem of open source libraries that we saw with the NPM, the package manager. So there's a lot of information out there. And the more information that is available online, the more libraries that you can make use of, allows you to focus on the core development of your application, and whereas bringing in the right packages to make use of them within your application. And there really are just a ton of packages covering this as we select different packages from the Node package manager, but you're welcome to take a look at what's available within the docs.npmjs.com. So you can find out more about the Node package manager and world's largest software register. So there's a lot of interesting information, and then also how to get started with it. It tells you how you can create your own packages, how you can install the Node package manager. And this does come by default with Node. So it should have installed with your Node install. How to get started, so setting up a Node package manager account, and you don't actually need an account, but you can set up an account if you are creating and if you're downloading regularly different packages and modules. So it tells you how you can contribute to the packages and register to the registry of the packages, different integrations of those. And then there's also some additional information here about the organizations, the enterprise, and the command line for Node. And it's got a listing of the command lines for Node. So as you become more familiar with the Node Package Manager, then you can check out some of the different command lines. So you can use the main website, the npmjs.com, in order to discover packages. So we are going to be looking at several packages, and when you do select a package, you can search for a package, and it will come up with the packages that are related to your search. So it's got a bunch of listings there. So apparently there's 23,000 packages that's found. It gives you some quick stats here on the right hand side about the packages. You can sort the packages by popularity, by optimal, by quality, and maintenance. So one of them that we are going to be using quite a bit is going to be the Express package. And when you do select a package, it'll give you the overall weekly downloads. And this is obviously a very popular package, as it's got 16 million plus weekly downloads. It gives you the version, the number of files there, any issues, and these issues are updated, so it's a really good resource. And it is suggested that the more downloads there are, the more activity there is, the better of a package it is. So when you are trying to gauge the packages, then you can use that as a gauge. So with most of the packages, it will give you a quick code example, also how to do the installation of the package, some of the features of the package, and then documentation. And in this one, it has a website, a repo, and this one actually does have a website because it's so super popular. And that not all of them will have the same information, that not all of them will have websites. Some of them will have Git repositories, so they all will vary. But most popular ones, the ones that are most interacted with, will have a lot of documentation. So how to do a quick install, how to create an app, how to install dependencies, how to start it. And then also some more code examples, how to clone the repo, how to do testing of it, and so on. So a lot of great information here at the Node Package Manager, as well as how to work with the various packages and how to select the packages. And the quickest way really is just through the search in order to select the packages. And we are going to be using the packages, the modules, quite a bit in the upcoming lessons, so you become a lot more familiar with it as you go through the lessons of the course. You can run as a standalone process on your machine. You can even connect to databases, web servers, application servers. It also allows JavaScript to do what C++ can do on your machine, and this is all done again through the Google V8 engine. It's single-threaded asynchronous JavaScript runtime, so it executes code at the same time. There's no waiting, and you can do more than one thing at a time. And I'm going to be explaining this in more detail. And if you go over to the Node website, it'll give you more details about Node and, of course, documentation. And there's really good documentation on the website itself. So going to Node.js.org under docs and listing out, selecting whatever the latest version is that you're using, it's got a listing of all of the documentation here on the website with code examples and everything you need in order to really get started with Node. Of course, we are covering this in the upcoming lessons. But if you do want to check out what's available at the nodejs.org/docs, then you can also click the link here in the navigation bar, and this will give you a full listing. So these are the API docs for the previous releases of Node. So you can select whatever Node version you're using, click the docs for the latest version. As well, you can click the docs for V16 up here at top. So these are the ES6 and beyond versions. So whether you're using V16 or V14, so take a look at the V16 documentation. And on the left-hand side of the documentation, so there's about the documentation. So to give you information about how to use the corresponding documentation, as well as the sustainability overview, so the different methods that are being used and whether they're stable or they're experimental or whether they're not in use anymore. And as we go through the upcoming lessons, we're going to reference the documentation. So at the time of filming, currently the latest is V16. So you might have a different version. So whatever the latest version is, that's the reference that you should be using within the documentation. So more on Node and how it works coming up in the next lesson.